Hey guys, unfortunately the video I planned to make today isn't going to go ahead because I don't have the time. I got sidetracked doing other errands. So instead I'm going to show you me making the handle for this rapier. Now this rapier is a 39-inch dark wood DA2 rapier blade. Side sword blade, and I've forged and finished these furnishings, which I'm planning on making a video on making the guard, another day. But this guard is one of the first prototypes that I've made for myself, based on a 17th century side sword guard from Italy, and I've rough forged a pommel, and I kind of left it rough forge to suit the finish on the guard as well. I wanted to kind of make a themed handle. So what I'm going to do is grab some durian wood, and I'm going to mount a handle for this rapier. So with the guard and pommel mounted, you can see that I've got a gap here between them that I have to fill with the wooden handle. Now, basically, I've left the pommel loose. You can actually screw it tighter a little bit more by about 3 turns. The reason for that is because I want the pommel to be able to put pressure on the guard through the handle, because although the guard is actually fairly securely fit, it is a little tiny bit loose. And I want to leave it that way because I want to make it interchangeable between darkwood blades, and being that darkwood, although make their blades to a relatively close dimensions, there is normally a little bit of discrepancy. So leaving it just that little bit, tiny bit loose, especially in the vertical, the edge to edge fashion rather than the thickness, means that I've got a little bit of room to move. So I'm just going to grab my calipers, and I'm going to get a rough measurement. When I say rough, I say as accurate as I can get it, trying to look through the phone. Again, I'm filming on my phone because my camera is not behaving. Okay, so from that, I can see right there, I've got 82 mil that I need to fill, and I can probably take that up to 83, 85, somewhere in there, of durian. Now, the reason I've chosen durian wood for my handle material is because A, it's what I have lying around in a thickness suitable. This is inch thick, I think. Thickness suitable to making a handle. Let me see. 30 mil actually. There you go. 30 mil. So it's a suitable thickness to make a handle out of, and it carves really, really well. It's a fairly solid wood, doesn't respond to moisture badly or anything like that, so I think it's going to make a fairly good handle wood. I'm going to leave it uncovered, being that this is a fencing sword. This is a practice sword. I'm not going to be too worried about the finish being magnificent. I want it to be more practical than showy. Okay, so next bit, I'll mark out my handle size. Okay, so from the end of the billet, which I know is square cut, I'm going to measure down. I'm going to give myself 87 mil of length, because then I can always trim a bit off. So yeah, I'm just going to scribe that with the calipers. I know a lot of people say don't scribe with your calipers. This is wood. I'm not particularly worried about damaging my calipers. And what I can do from there is grab my combination square, mark it out, and cut it. But what I'm going to do before I do that, ideally when you're measuring out for knife handles, you want the handle to match the width of the ricasso. Now, to get a decent flow out of this handle, I want it to be relatively within that limit. So if I'm measuring here, it's 24 mil, 24 mil. I'm sure you can see that. Yep, 24 mil. Which is fairly thin, but you know, when you consider the thickness of the material, you know, it's going to be. I'm going to make it slightly proud of the guard at about 15. So what I'm going to do is I'll cut 30 by 30, and we'll go from there. Go 30. All right, we'll just cut that out. Going to go slightly outside my line. That easy. Because the grain's so straight, you can see that, it's almost square. Obviously you're not going to get perfect lines, but that's pretty good for a split. Obviously I carried through a little bit and actually hit the bottom rest, but I'm not too worried about that because I can sand that out or cut it off. So yeah, it's that's my handle block. Now I've got to drill the central holes for the tang, and then I'm going to make a facsimile to use to burn the tang through. So I've taken the furnishings off so I can measure the tang against a drill bit. Now what I could do is just take my calipers. Sorry, I'm doing this one-handed, so take my calipers, give it a measure, and see that it's, yep, 6 mil, because I know, having threaded the pommel earlier, I know it's an M6, which means that this thickness of this tang is 6 mil. But if I didn't have that, or if I'd hand forged it, or if, you know, say I didn't have the calipers or a good ruler or anything like that, all you have to do is take various sizes of drill bit. Now this is a 6 mil. I'm pretty sure this is actually a 6.5. This is actually too large. So that's a perfect example. I put it up against the blade and I can actually feel with my fingers as I run them over the tang and the drill bit that it's too large. So what I do, grab my drill bits. That's a 6.5. I want a 6. And now when I measure it up against the tang, yeah, I know that's the right thickness. Now of course I don't want to drill a 6 mil hole all the way up and try and cross-reference those. So instead what I'm going to do is take a 5 mil, which is going to be undersized, and that way I can work the tang slot out to the tang rather than trying to fill the hole between the tang and the wood. If you make it too loose in the beginning, then you're going to have a rattly handle which isn't going to stay in place. What I want is a nice tight fitting handle, so 5 mil it is. Okay, so because I know my drill, I know my drill press quite well, I know that I can get away with just freehanding this. And one side, as I said before when I was cutting it, is already square because it's cut from the mill. The other side that I just cut off without marking isn't, but I didn't care about that at the time because I know that I can square it up later. I've made it so it just fits under the drill bit because all I want to do at the moment is drill a center hole. This is the short drill bit, and then I'll come in with a larger one, a longer one, to get all the way through the billet. So all I'm going to do is grab a pencil, or a Sharpie as it may be, and I'm going to roughly estimate, or I could, actually I'll rule it because, you know, trying to instruct people, educate people. Just roughly mark. I've got a lot of room to move with this piece of wood, so I don't have to be too pay too close attention to detail at this stage. Get it under there and drill. So there's our center hole. Now, one thing you might have noted is that the drill bit wandered a little bit. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that. But that's always a risk when drilling along the grain, rather than across the grain, is that the drill bit will want to follow the grain. So if you've got a really wonky piece of wood, quite commonly, especially with longer drill bits, and the further away from the chuck you are, you're going to have the drill bit try and wander with the grain, which is why it's better to shorten your drill bit in the chuck and then peck small sections and then kind of gradually go deeper. I was fairly confident with the straightness of the grain of this durian wood that I could drill the full length of this drill bit before going to the longer nose without having too much issue. But that's something to be very aware of, especially with your harder woods. I've actually, for instance, got this wandoo over here. So this is some wandoo. It's not too bad in terms of straightness. I've actually been kind of whittling away at it to make a handle out of. It's got a bit of few knots and stuff like that in it. But the grain is sufficiently wonky in this piece that if I tried to drill with the grain, the drill bit would most definitely wander with it. And especially because this is such a hard wood. This is stronger than steel in some cases. But yeah, it really does depend on the wood you're drilling. Just shorten your drill bit in your chuck and it'll solve a lot of problems. Alright, so I'll switch out to the longer drill bit and then I'll finalize that hole. Right, so I've got the longer drill bit chucked up in the drill. This is actually, fortunately, the largest long neck drill bit I have. I bought these off eBay. They're not exactly the highest quality, but they're good for the job I do. Anyway, I'm going to freehand this. Now, I wouldn't suggest it with harder woods or with woods that don't have such a straight grain, because freehanding, holding the block, you can easily get a lot of wiggle going and actually snap the drill bit. But yeah, with this slightly softer wood, I reckon I can get away with it. I may regret that, but that's my prerogative, I suppose. There you go. Because the grain is relatively straight, it stayed almost perfectly central the whole width of the block, which I'm really happy with. But yeah, from now, it makes a nice noise. So what I can do from now, I've actually reconsidered. I'm not going to burn in the tang. I'm actually going to do something slightly different, and I'll show you how I file in a tang rather than burning. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my hole drilled. Now all I've got to do is that. Okay, so now I've drilled my hole. I've got to widen it to fit the blade portion of the tang at the back of the blade. Obviously, it's not round. So what I'm going to do is take a standard round needle file. This is just a tiny little needle file I bought from Bunnings, and I'm basically going to start cutting that slot in. Now, knife makers actually have a specific tool for this. If you watch Alex Steele's videos, he has one called a broach, and I'm actually going to make a video on how I make mine. I don't actually have one right now because I gave my last one to a friend of mine. But this works. It's much slower than burning in, much slower than broaching. But if you just keep your calm, maybe listen to some good music while you're doing it, and making sure to flip it over occasionally and make sure you're working from both sides. You can actually make quite a bit of progress, especially with these softer carving woods. And yeah, once you've done that, once I've filed out that tang slot, you can already see it's getting oval. I'm going to drill the back end out to 6mm to fit the threaded rod. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so I've got it fit. As you can see, it's a big old chunk of wood on a sword. Doesn't look much like a sword handle at the moment, but it's in the place where I need it. I filed it to the point where it's a friction fit, and I made sure that there's no gaps. I'm heirlooming this portion, but I made sure there's no significant gaps either side, and it all fits up tightly. You can't rattle anything. So that's the final grip length, which is pretty good for my hand. That's why I made that swooped section of this forged pommel. I actually did forge that in, but I also ground a little bit off just to make it even. So now what I'm going to do, I'm take a very, finely sharpened pencil, as you can see, and I'm going to mark. This is terrible, but I'm going to mark around my wood. On this side, I'm going to come about a pencil's width out, and I'm going to mark about that much. Oop, that was terrible. About there. And I'm going to grind that off, and then I'll grind the profile. Now the profile is going to be fairly simple. It's just going to come from this mark here, so roughly about there, and I'm going to swell and then come back in to where the ricasso is on both sides. Okay, so there's the rough shaped handle, and now what I'm going to do is come in with files. Obviously I came outside my lines on purpose with files such as this one. I'm just going to start shaping in my final dimensions. I prefer to do this part by hand because there's less chances of you overdoing it. You've got more opportunity to kind of stop and look and feel in the hand how it feels, and make adjustments as you go. I know, for instance, that I'm going to have my finger over the ricasso, so that's why I want that peak out here, this one here, to be at about that length, because that's about 2 fingers length. So it's good. It fits right between the middle finger and the ring finger, which even with my finger over the ricasso isn't going to be an issue. Okay, so she's now fully shaped, and I've fitted up to the tang just to make sure. Here it is. So goes on. Now I wanted it to be slightly proud. That's on the wrong way. Wanted it to be slightly tough to mount. The guard's still a little bit loose, but I wanted the handle to be nice and solid, because one of the biggest gripes I have about a lot of fencing rapiers is that they tend to have very loose handles. Anyway, cinch it down, and I've made the pommel such that I will heirloom the wood in. I'm a little bit proud on this side, so I'm going to have to take a little bit more off. Basically, I want to be like that all the way around, where the metal is heirlooming into the wood. That gives the opportunity for the wood to expand with moisture or something like that, and it won't have a horrible seam. I'm also going to round the heirlooming in just a little bit. But that's pretty much the fit up that I wanted. And the handle, that feels really nice in the hand. Nice palm swell, really solid. So all I'm going to do is take some 400 grit sandpaper. Sorry it's backwards, unfortunately I am filming in selfie mode. And I'll heirloom this side, which is just to round the shoulders of the top. Don't leave any sharp edges. And then I'll sand this down a little bit while I've got it on here. I'll grab my pencil, which is right here, and I'll just mark the areas that need fixing. And of course the pencil lead breaks. But anyway, I'll mark that, I'll file that back, sand it, and then we'll be ready for finishing. Okay, so I've heirloomed in the shoulders. I'm not sure, yeah, it shows up. It's hard because the camera wants to autofocus. Focus close. Camera, come on. Yeah, no, doesn't want to focus. Okay. Anyway, so I've heirloomed in the edges. All I did was take that 400 grit sandpaper and round out by hand both sides of the handle, and now it's in final condition. Now it looks really small, but you've got to remember that the pommel is going to come out from here a good, inch and a half of curved surface for my hand, and then you've also got the extra added bit of the pommel there. So what I'm going to do is take some Scandinavian oil. Again, it's backwards because I'm using selfie camera on my phone. So unfortunately these oils, because they've got hardeners, if you get them on the threads, then they tend to glue themselves shut. The last batch of tung oil I had did that. So anyway, I'm just going to take a liberal amount of your oil and oil up the handle. Now you can go as nuts as you like with this. You can oil it, let it dry for 24 hours, come back at it, as many times as you like. I've gone to the point where I've created an almost glassy finish on wood. Or you can just do 1 or 2 coats. That's normally enough to protect it in the short run. I'm also doing the inside of the tang hole. I wouldn't normally do that if I was gluing this handle up. But because this is going to be a removable handle, I want it to be relatively protected inside and out. I'll probably do 3 or 4 coats on this, just to protect it from moisture, because I don't plan on leaving this out, but I do tend to fight in the rain occasionally. So for those of you who are wondering what I do as far as rapier fencing is concerned, I fight in the SCA, Society for Creative Anachronism. I know that there's the SCA started in the USA, and as you may guess by the name, it's medieval reenactment. There is armored fighting and rapier fighting. I don't do heavy armored fighting at the moment. That's going to have to be somewhere down the track. I'll have to do a video series on forging some armor, because they have much stricter armor requirements than what I can currently get up to. And if there's enough interest in the comments, I might put up a video of me in one of my rapier bouts. But that'll have to depend on you guys. If you want to see my rapier bouts and featuring my new rapier, well, I mean, the blade's not mine, but the blade is mine, but it's not made by me. But the fittings are made by me. If you want to see it featured in a rapier bout, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll, if there's sufficient interest, I'll show that on the channel. Anyway, what I'm going to do next, fit it up, and then I'll show you the final product. Okay guys, so there's the finished hilt. I think it came out quite nice. The wood is still quite satin at this point. After a few more coats it'll shine up a bit. I've also put Scandinavian oil on the guard and the pommel, and that'll help protect it from rust while it's being stored. I also occasionally just wipe down the blade with some air tool oil. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Can't wait to start stabbing some people with it. Jacob's been helping me out in the workshop today. Say hi, Jake.
Hi.
He's been working on his little hammer handle. Been whittling away, making a wooden hammer. He might be featured in a future video. We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit that bell icon to be updated when we upload new videos. And I try to upload content every week on Wednesday. I'll be uploading again next week. I was supposed to upload the Basilard video today, but it didn't happen, so that'll probably be next week's video. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one.